My husband secretly took out a loan in my name, saying we're married, so what's yours is mine. When I found out and confronted him, he shrugged. It's not a big deal, you can just pay it off. The next day, he woke up to find our joint bank account completely empty and a note that read, "You can just pay it off." I met Mark in Chicago. I was 34, working long shifts as a nurse. He was 36, an architect with big dreams. We clicked right away. After a year, we got married. Life seemed good. We talked about buying a house, traveling, maybe starting a family. After we got married, we decided to open a joint bank account. It made sense to combine our finances for household expenses and savings. We agreed to keep our individual accounts for personal spending. This setup worked well for us, or so I thought. A few months into our marriage, I started noticing odd things with our finances. One day, I received a letter from a bank I'd never heard of, thanking me for opening an account. I thought it was a mistake and tossed it. Then, a credit card statement arrived for a card I didn't have. It showed a balance of $5,000. I was confused and worried. I asked Mark about it. He laughed it off, saying it was probably a mix-up. He told me not to worry and that he'd handle it. I trusted him and let it go. But the letters kept coming. More accounts, more debts. My credit score, which had always been good, started dropping. I couldn't ignore it anymore. One evening, after a long shift at the hospital, I sat down with all the letters and statements. I called the bank from the first letter. The representative told me I had opened a personal loan account with them 2 months ago. The loan was for $50,000. I felt sick. I told them I hadn't opened any such account. They said the application had all my personal information and even my signature. I knew I hadn't signed anything. I asked for copies of the application and any related documents. When they arrived, I saw the signature. It looked like mine but wasn't. Someone had forged my name. I confronted Mark. I showed him the documents and asked if he knew anything about it. He looked at them and then at me. He shrugged and said, "We're married, Sarah. What's yours is mine. It's not a big deal, you can just pay it off." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I told him this was serious, that it was fraud. He didn't seem to care. He said it was just a loan and that we'd pay it off together. I felt betrayed. I couldn't understand how he could do this to me. I needed time to think. The next morning, I woke up early. Mark was still asleep. I went online and transferred all the money from our joint account into my personal account. It was about $20,000. I left a note on the kitchen counter that read, "You can just pay it off." I packed a bag and went to stay with my sister. I needed space and time to figure out what to do next. I contacted a lawyer to understand my options. She told me that in Illinois, what Mark did was considered identity theft and fraud. She explained that even though we were married, he didn't have the right to open accounts or take out loans in my name without my consent. I decided to file a police report. It was a hard decision. Despite what he did, I still cared about Mark. But I couldn't let this go. The police took my statement and started an investigation. They found that Mark had opened several accounts in my name, totaling over $100,000 in loans and credit card debt. I also contacted the banks and credit card companies to report the fraud. Some were helpful, others less so. It was a long and stressful process. I filed for divorce. It wasn't just about the money. The trust was gone. I couldn't stay in a marriage where I felt betrayed and unsafe. Mark was charged with identity theft and fraud. He hired a lawyer and pleaded not guilty. The legal process was slow and painful. I had to testify in court. I had to recount everything, from finding the first letter to confronting Mark. It was emotionally draining. The court found Mark guilty. He was sentenced to probation and ordered to pay restitution. He also had to attend financial counseling. I was relieved, but also sad. This wasn't how I imagined my marriage ending. I started attending therapy to deal with the emotional fallout. I also joined support groups for victims of financial abuse. It helped to talk to others who had been through similar experiences. I became more vigilant about my finances. I regularly checked my credit reports and monitored my accounts. I also learned about identity theft protection and took steps to safeguard my personal information. I shared my story online, hoping to help others. The response was overwhelming. Many people reached out, sharing their own experiences and offering support. Through this ordeal, I learned the importance of financial independence and transparency in relationships. Trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. I'm taking things one day at a time, focusing on healing and rebuilding my life. It's not easy, but I'm determined to move forward. A few weeks after the trial, just when I started feeling like I could breathe again, I got a call from a collections agency. They were asking about a car loan in my name, $32,000 overdue. I froze. I thought we found everything during the investigation. I thought the worst was behind me. I told them it wasn't mine and asked for details. The loan was taken out 5 months ago. That meant it was during the time Mark and I were still living together, right when I started noticing things were off. I called my lawyer immediately. She told me to request the paperwork and to not engage the collection agency directly beyond that. She also said she'd help me escalate it to the credit bureaus and the police. When I got the paperwork, I stared at the fake signature on the car loan. It looked like someone tried harder this time to copy mine. But still, it wasn't quite right. The address listed wasn't our old apartment or mine. It was some address in a suburb outside Chicago, Skokie. I drove there. I know it wasn't smart, but I needed to see for myself. The house looked normal. Gray siding, a small porch, a mailbox full of letters. I sat in my car, trying to decide what to do, when I saw him. Mark. He walked out the front door, holding a baby. My stomach dropped. He kissed a woman who stepped out behind him. She was maybe early 30s, petite, long dark hair. They looked like a family. A real one. Like the kind we used to talk about starting. I pulled back fast, heart pounding, hands shaking. Back in my car, I started piecing it together. He had a whole other life. Maybe even while we were still married. The loans. The lies. The way he brushed it off like it didn't matter. Maybe because he never planned to stick around. I told my lawyer everything. She said this changed things. If he used my identity to support another household, it was a whole new level of fraud. We dug deeper. Found out the car was in that woman's name now, but it was bought using the loan under mine. We also discovered another bank account, again under my name, where Mark had funneled some of the loan money. I couldn't stop shaking when I found out. He didn't just steal from me. He used me to fund another life. My lawyer pushed for new charges. We met with the district attorney and laid everything out. They agreed to reopen the case. Meanwhile, I was getting hit from all sides. Another credit card bill. A utility account in my name from that same Skokie address. Each day felt like another punch. The woman, his new partner, or whatever she was, called me. I don't even know how she got my number. She left a voicemail, crying, saying she had no idea, saying Mark told her I was his crazy ex-wife trying to ruin his life. I didn't respond. I couldn't. The police talked to her. They found out she'd been giving Mark cash every month, thinking it was going toward paying off his debts. He told her he was fixing his credit to build a future for them. He never told her the debts were in my name. She agreed to testify. That's when things really started to move. Mark got served again. New charges. More fraud. This time with witnesses, with paper trails, with more pressure. But he didn't just roll over. He started sending me emails. Long ones. Some begging. Some angry. One minute, he'd say he missed me. The next, he'd blame me for ruining his life. He said I was bitter, cold, and that I'd regret it. Said I was making a big deal out of nothing. I blocked him everywhere. But then strange things started happening. I got locked out of one of my online banking accounts. Someone tried to reset my email password. My phone number got used to open a new streaming subscription. I called my lawyer again. She said to take it seriously. I filed a report with the police about the attempted hacks. They linked the IP addresses back to a library near Skokie. It was him. Again. The DA added charges for cyberstalking and identity misuse. I installed security cameras. got a VPN, froze my credit. Every day, I felt like I was chasing a ghost, trying to undo the mess he left behind, while also trying to protect myself from what he might do next. He didn't care that it was illegal. He didn't care that he got caught. He didn't even care that I had nothing left to give. He just wanted control. And now I was more certain than ever I wasn't done fighting. A month passed after the new charges were filed. I was still living out of boxes at my sister's house in Oak Park, trying to rebuild what I could. The DA said the case was strong. My lawyer said justice was finally catching up with him. Then I got a letter from the IRS. At first, I thought it was just tax season stuff. But the letter said I was being audited for undeclared income, $86,000 of it, from a freelance design business registered under my name. I don't do freelance. I've been a nurse for 12 years. I never started any business. I called the IRS immediately. They said someone had been filing returns for the last 2 years under my name. Mark's side hustle. He used my SSN, made up documents, and even filed for refunds. He had been collecting money under a fake business name, SNS Design Concepts, all while I was working night shifts at the hospital. I felt like I was drowning. No matter how much I thought I'd handled, there was more. More lies. More damage. It wasn't just loans and accounts anymore, it was federal tax fraud. I contacted my lawyer again. She was furious. We gathered everything and went straight to the federal side. This was now outside local jurisdiction. And then something even worse happened. A social worker showed up at my sister's door. She said there had been an anonymous report that I was emotionally unstable and possibly abusing prescription meds and putting children at risk. The report also claimed I had access to children at the hospital and should be investigated. I nearly collapsed. I asked her straight up, who filed the report? She said it was anonymous, but the wording sounded familiar. Too familiar. Like the way Mark used to phrase things during arguments. Passive-aggressive. A mix of fake concern and twisted logic. The social worker left after speaking with me and my sister, who backed me up. I also gave her my clean employment record from the hospital, my prescription history, which was non-existent, and the fact that I hadn't worked in pediatrics in over 2 years. She said everything checked out, but the damage had been done. That's when it hit me. Mark wasn't just lashing out. He was trying to ruin me. Systematically. Slowly. He wanted me to break. The social worker apologized. She said she'd mark the report as unfounded. But she warned me, it might not be the last time if someone was determined. I knew he was behind it. I couldn't prove it, but I knew. A few days later, I got a call from the hospital. HR wanted to check in about a concern they'd received. Again, anonymous. Something about me having financial instability that could make me vulnerable to influence from patients. I couldn't believe it. He was going after my job now. I had to sit down with my boss, the head of HR, and a hospital counselor. I laid it all out. The fraud, the divorce, the charges, the ongoing investigation. I gave them every document I had. I cried in that meeting. I was ashamed of it, but I couldn't help it. To their credit, they were supportive. They said they'd back me up, that I was one of their best nurses. But still, I could see it. The concern, the questions, my reputation, something I'd built over a decade, was cracked now. Even if they believed me, it wouldn't go away. Mark had taken more than money. He'd taken my peace of mind, my name, my future. And he wasn't done. Then came the twist that made me stop breathing. My lawyer called late one night. She said she got word that Mark had filed for spousal support. He was claiming I'd financially abandoned him, that I'd stolen the joint account funds, that I'd ruined his life, made him unemployable, and left him with no income. I laughed. Out loud. It wasn't funny, but it was so insane I couldn't hold it in. She said he had no real case, but she had to respond. Illinois courts don't usually side with someone who committed fraud, but technically, our divorce hadn't finalized when I emptied the joint account. That money? He was trying to claim it as marital property he was owed. I asked if he could actually get anything. She said unlikely, but he might try to drag it out to bleed me dry in legal fees. It was harassment, plain and simple. I sat in my car outside my sister's house for an hour that night. I didn't go inside. I just stared out the window, trying to understand how one man could turn so cruel. Not angry, not spiteful, just calculated and cold. He wasn't impulsive. He was methodical. He didn't just want revenge. He wanted control. He wanted to erase me, not physically, but legally, socially, financially. I told my lawyer to push back hard. Every filing, every claim, every move, document it. We weren't playing defense anymore. We were going to make sure he couldn't just move on to his next victim. I was still living out of a suitcase. Still waking up in the middle of the night to check that my accounts hadn't been hacked. Still looking over my shoulder every time a number I didn't recognize called my phone. But something had changed. I wasn't just surviving now. I was planning. The court date for the spousal support hearing came. Mark showed up in a new suit, clean-shaven, trying to play the victim. His lawyer talked about how I emotionally devastated him, how I stripped him of financial resources, and how he was trying to rebuild his life after my abandonment. I sat there quiet, hands in my lap, jaw tight. When it was my turn, my lawyer brought out the full stack: police reports, IRS investigations, the reopened fraud case, the forged documents, the financial trail, screenshots of fake business filings, and even a signed statement from his other woman, who had since kicked him out when she found out the depth of his lies. Mark's face dropped when he saw her name on the witness list. She didn't show, but her letter was enough. The judge leaned back in his chair, read everything, and looked straight at Mark. He said, "I have rarely seen a case with this level of personal betrayal. Not only will I deny your request for spousal support, but I will recommend further civil and criminal review of your actions." Mark turned red. His lawyer looked like she wanted to disappear. Then the judge turned to me. He said, "You did the right thing coming forward, but you should have reported the financial signs sooner." Your silence gave him room to escalate. I nodded. He wasn't wrong. I stayed quiet when the first red flags showed up because I didn't want to believe the man I married could be that kind of person. I let fear of ruining the marriage stop me from protecting myself. That was on me. I paid the price for that mistake, but now so would he. A week later, federal agents showed up at Mark's new apartment. He was arrested again, this time on felony tax fraud and identity theft. The new charges meant real time. His bail was denied because the court considered him a flight risk. The court also froze his assets, what little was left. The car in my name was repossessed. The fake accounts were shut down. Credit agencies finally wiped the fraudulent debts. It took months, but I finally got letters confirming I was no longer responsible. But I wasn't done. I filed a civil lawsuit for damages. Emotional distress, legal fees, lost wages, and reputational harm. His public defender tried to get it tossed out. The judge said no. When the trial started, I walked in with every receipt. I testified for hours. Calm. Factual. No tears this time. Just truth. The jury ruled in my favor. Mark was ordered to pay over $150,000 in damages. He didn't have the money, of course. But a lien was placed on anything he ever earns. He'll never be able to buy property, start a legit job, or open credit without that debt hanging over him. He sent me one last letter from jail. It wasn't an apology. It was rage. He blamed me for destroying his life, said I should have handled it like a wife, said I was cold. I burned it. I burned every reminder of him. I changed my name. I moved out of state. I got promoted to head nurse. My sister helped me find a condo in a small town where no one knew me as that woman with the crazy ex. I joined a financial abuse survivors group. I speak at events now, helping others spot the signs. I also wrote a piece for a major magazine under a pen name. It went viral. People from all over the country wrote in, some with similar stories, some just to say thank you. Mark will be in prison for years. When he gets out, he'll be broke, unemployable, and under federal watch. He said, "What's yours is mine." So I took it all back, and everything he thought he'd get away with. And now, what's his is mine to tell.